something, when I start looking for a series that I want to preach on, and I go looking for videos, sometimes I have to pay for them. I paid a lot for this one because it really focuses in on what we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. We're in what I call the Mark It Up series. In other words, bring your Bible and your pencil and let's mark it up, and so that as time goes by, we can turn the pages of our scripture and see notes that we've kept. Also, I have a handout like I normally do for the sermons this morning. And as we get into this, and all of a sudden you say, oh no, man, I wasn't paying attention, and he just said something important. Okay. Maybe it sounded important, and I wish that my mind hadn't drifted. Well, you can go to YouTube and search Toccoa Christian Church Sermons, and you'll find this. You click on it. You need to subscribe, and you'll be able to find the sermon. It'll be on there tomorrow morning, and you can go back through and you say, oh no, what did he say something important? And you'll be able to find it if I did, or you can go through it and say, no, that wasn't important. But the issue is, over the next few weeks, we're going to be studying the book of Judges. And there is a verse, this verse actually appears twice, this statement in the book of Judges, and you'll understand why. The first place we find this is in Judges 17:6. It says, in those days there was no king in Israel. They hadn't appointed a king, and obviously God was the king of Israel, but there was no physical king. But every man, this is where I got the title of the series, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And guys, what happens to us when we start making the decisions and we do what we think is correct, or we do what we think is right? Here's the other passage, and even though it says the same thing, in those days there was no king in Israel, this is actually the last verse in Judges. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Now what does that mean? Well, I believe it means this. You do what you think is right. And this is the implication. You do what you think is right. But don't expect me to do what you think is right. Because what's right for me may not be right for you. And what's right for you may not be right for me. And guys, what happens to people when they take on that mentality? What happens to a nation when it takes on that mentality? And one of the things I'm going to say right now, and you're going to hear me say this over the next few weeks, and I'll be trying to prove that, is we now live in a nation of people that are literally have no respect for the law, and everybody's doing what they think's right or what they think their group thinks is correct. And guys, it's creating so many problems in our nation, and we all recognize it. See, it's my life. It's my life. I can do what I want. Implication of this statement: when I want, with whom I want. Watch this. As long as nobody gets hurt. See, that's the mentality. It was the mentality during the time of Judges, the Judges. Goes through about a 330-year period of time. We all know that Moses brought Israel, brought the nation of Israel out of Egypt. He didn't take them into the promised land, Joshua did. Well, when Joshua died, it's that time, that period between when Joshua died and David took over the throne of Israel. And guys, the reason I say David is because Saul never brought all 12 tribes together. David was the first one. And during the time of David or Saul, some of the judges were still judging. Now you're going to recognize some of them. Maybe you were number 2, Ehud, if you can see his name. What about Deborah? You remember Deborah, she was a judge. And Barak. There's Gideon. See, we remember stories about Gideon. He was a judge of Israel. We go on down through there. There's a lot of them we don't recognize. What about Samson? See, Samson was a judge of Israel, and during this period of time, people were doing whatever they thought was right in their own eye. And we're going to see the consequences that come from doing that. And as we go through and we view some of the stories in the book of Judges, there's Eli, Samuel, we remember Samuel, and some of the others aren't as well known. But in Judges, there is what's called the cycle of sin. It goes like this. The people of Israel serve the Lord. Okay, that's the right thing. Israel falls into sin and idolatry. That's the wrong thing. Israel becomes enslaved because they are disobedient to God. Israel cries out to the Lord for help. God raises up a judge. All right? And then Israel is delivered. And guys, this happens over and over and over and over again because everyone was doing what was right in their own eye. Now, when the judge comes along, they come back, they're obedient to God, things go well, and then the cycle continues again. See, we've all experienced that. All of us in our life have found times when we chose to be disobedient. Maybe it started with our parents, okay? Or maybe it had something to be disobedient to the law of the land, and we had consequences. Maybe we were disobedient to our religious beliefs, or we became disobedient even to our own conscience. And our conscience condemned us, and it kind of went like this. Our conscience, the law, our parents, our friends would say, "Don't do that. Don't do it, please. Don't do that. Don't do that." And guess what? We did it. And when we did it, we say, "Oh my, I'm in trouble. I've got myself in a mess." And then we start crying out, and we need help. Somebody has to come and bail us out of jail. Someone has to give us money because we spend it on alcohol or we spend it on drugs. We know about this, guys. We've experienced these things in our life. We've been disobedient. We have rebelled against God, and we've done what we wanted to do in our own life. And because of that, we got ourselves in a mess. See, we say, it's my life, and I can do what I want to do. And we did that. And we did it when we wanted to, with whom we wanted to do it. And we said, well, as long as I don't get hurt, or someone doesn't get hurt, it's okay. But guys, when we get to this story, we're going to talk about the last story in the book of Judges, because I want you to see what happens when everyone does what's right in their own eyes. Because we've gone through this. Now, you understand the hesitation as we go through this story. Guys, this story I'm about to tell you, it's found in Judges, and it's horrendous. It's absolutely terrible. If you don't know the story, you're not going to believe it. And if you do know the story, you're going to say, man, I forgot that. In fact, I wanted to forget that. And I was trying to find a way to say to you, before we get into it, exactly how bad it was. And I came up with... This is the Chainsaw Massacre. And maybe this best describes this story. And I said, well, maybe if it's not that, maybe it's Michael in Halloween, and maybe this best describes the story that I'm about to go through with you. Guys, it is horrendous. And it became horrendous. It became terrible. It became unbelievable, because you'd say, nobody would do this stuff. Guys, yes they did. And it happened because everyone thought it was correct to do what they thought was right in their own eye. Man, I hope you got your Bibles. You're certainly going to want to go back and view this one on YouTube, because there are so many moving parts here. And I'm going to tell you some of it. I'm going to read some of it to you. I hope you're ready. Is everybody sitting down? Yeah, you're sitting down. So, okay, watch this. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Last verse. Every man did that which was right in his own eye. Well, how did you draw that conclusion? Well, there's this story. In those days, Israel had no king. Now a Levite, this we're in Judges 19. Now a Levite. Now, a Levite was an individual who was set aside to be part of the priestly people in Israel. But they had their own land when they went into the Promised Land. And all of the Levites lived together, and all the different tribes lived in their own section of the Promised Land. But we're talking about a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim. There's where he worshiped and served God, and you'll see that as we get into it. Took a concubine. That kind of sounds odd. I mean, he's a priest, okay, of God, and he took for himself a concubine. Now, it wasn't his wife. It wasn't a girlfriend. She wasn't a servant. Maybe. She had another purpose. And I don't have to tell you what that purpose is. You know what that purpose is. He took a concubine, all right, from Bethlehem in Judea. All right, so there's the beginning of our story. But she was unfaithful to him. That's the only response I can give to that. She left him and went back to her parents' home in Bethlehem in Judea. After after she had been there for 4 months. She'd only been with him a short period of time. All right? How in the world does a Levite, a priest of God, take a concubine? Now, we're going to learn later in this series that these ideas come from the Canaanites. But he's a priest of God, okay? And he's doing this. Her husband, now there's not a word for husband in the Hebrew language or wife. There's not a word in the Greek language for husband or wife. In the Greek language, it's to be called a husband. He was known as the man of her. A wife was known as the woman of him. In the Hebrew language, this term husband comes from a very obscure Hebrew term, which means a man who bands stuff together, who brings stuff together. He was her person who brought the family or the group together. Not husband like we think husband. It's important to understand that. Her husband, the guy who brought them together and held them together, went to her to persuade her to return. When they were near, let me back up. He had with him his servant, 2 donkeys. She took him to her parents' home where her father saw him, and he gladly welcomed him. When they were near Jebus, and the day was almost gone, the servant said to the master, "Come, let's stop at this city of the Jebusites and spend the night." The priest made a right statement. His master replied, "No, we won't go into any city where people are not Israelites." All right? So you're getting the story. We will go on to Gibeah. We know about Gibeah. We've studied that. So they went on, and the sun set as they neared Gibeah in Benjamin, and Gibeah was a city in the land mass that the Benjamites had. All right? There, they stopped to spend the night. They went and sat in the city square. Now, guys, this is where it's getting ready to start. And you're just not going to believe this. How could they even write this in the Bible? But no one took them in for the night. Now, you need to understand, they didn't have hotels and motels. If you were in a city and you were visiting, you needed a place to stay. You went to the center of the city, you sat down, and it was required of the people to come and take you into their home. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the inhabitants of the place of the Benjamites, okay? Yeah, he has to keep reminding this because when these things start happening, our minds are going to go in so many different directions, and we're going to forget these important pieces. He came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" Okay, is he going to take him in? He answered, "We are on our way from Bethlehem in Judea to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim, where I live. I have been to Bethlehem in Judea, and now I'm going to the house of the Lord." See, he was a priest. How does a priest take a concubine? Not a wife, it's not a servant, but she has a purpose. And how does he do that? "No one has taken me in for the night. We have both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for ourselves, your servants, me, the woman and the young man with us. We don't need anything. We just need a place to stay." Okay? "You are welcome at my house," the old man said. Man, this is just great. You know, somebody would do this. "Let me supply whatever you need." Watch this. This gives us a key. Something's not right. "Only don't spend the night in the square." Oh, Man, there is a reason. So, he took him into his house and fed his donkeys. After they had washed their feet, they had something to eat and to drink. Guys, you're not going to believe this. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. I hope you're sitting down, but you're not going to believe this. Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." Now, the Canaanites, if somebody came into their cities and they didn't know who they were and they thought they might be a spy, they took them and sexually abused them. But these are Benjamites. These are people of God. Bring him out so we can have sex with him. The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter." You're not going to believe what. "And his concubine, I will bring them out to you, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." But the men would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them. Real brave man, isn't he? Read this. You say, how can this be? And what happened, they braced her up against the door of the house. And when the guy came out the next morning, she was there. And she had been raped and abused all night long by multiple men, time and time and time and time again, over and over and over and over, and she was dead. He was furious. When he reached home, he's going to send a letter to all the tribes of Israel and tell them what the Benjamites have done. But he said, they don't know me. They don't know anything about me. So he made a decision. He took a knife and cut up his concubine, limb by limb, into 12 parts, and sent them into all the areas of Israel with this note saying what the Benjamites have done. When people do what is right in their own eye, it's unbelievable the things that people, or maybe we, have justified in our life. Everyone who saw it went out to all the nation of Israel, saying to one another, "Such a thing has never been seen or done, not since the day of the Israelites came out of Egypt." Just imagine. We must do something. So speak up. The other 11 tribes have come together and they've decided that what we're going to do is we're going to go get those men. And we're going to punish them. And they do this And you're not going to believe what happens. Then all of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, came from the land of Gilead, came together as one and assembled before the Lord in Mizpah. Then the men of Israel took an oath. None of our women are ever going to marry a Benjamite because of what they have done. And we're going to war, and we're going to get these people. The Benjamites brought together over 400,000 men to fight against the other 11 tribes. The first battle, the other 11 tribes lost. Then after that, they came up with this plan. And they got the 400,000 men in the second battle to leave the area of their protection and to follow a group of the men, and then another group of men came around behind them, and they destroyed all 400,000 men except for 600. You say, well, Gary, that's a battle and stuff like this. What you have to understand, the 600 ran off into the woods. And then there was blood, thirst in the minds of the other 11 tribes. They went into the land of Benjamin. They killed all of the other men. They killed all of the women. They killed all of the children. Now remember, they had 400,000 men. They went back in. They killed everyone. And then all of a sudden they stopped and they said, what have we done? We have almost killed the tribe of Benjamin. There's only 600 people left. What have we done to God's 12 tribes? And they said, well, what we need to do is we need to get those 600 men to come out, and we need to give them wives. But the 11 tribes said, no, we took an oath before God. We're not going to give them our daughters. And they said, well, wait a minute. Did everybody provide men for this battle? Somebody stands up and says, well, Jabesh Gilead, the city of Jabesh Gilead, and it's different from Gilead, they didn't provide anyone. Well, there you go. We're going to go in and get their women because they didn't help us. And we'll give those women to the 600 people that are left. Can you believe this? Can you believe what they're doing? So they took 12,000 men, sent them into Jabesh Gilead, and killed all the people in that city except for the virgin women, but there was only 400 left. There's 600 men. How will the tribe of Benjamin ever be rebuilt? There's not enough. And so what happens is they make a decision. Here's the 12,000 men that went into Jabesh Gilead. They put the sword to those living there, including the women and the children. They wrote this down. This is what you are going to do, they said. Kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin. There's only 400 of them. They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with a man. And they took them to the camp in Shiloh in Canaan, and they said, we still don't have enough. What are we going to do? What are the other 200 men going to do? So the Benjamites returned at that time and were given the women in Jabesh Gilead. There's still 200 short who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. And the elders of the assembly said, with the women of Benjamin destroyed, they destroyed them. How shall we provide wives for the men who are left? There's 200. But look, there is the annual feast of the Lord in Shiloh. Well, here you go. That's when the women come out and they dance. I think it's like a Mayfair pole. Remember how you danced around the pole? All right. which lies north of Bethel, east of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem, south of Lebanon. And there's wait a minute, and what happened is they went in to the Lord's people in this city, and they took 200 more wives. And they gave them to the other 200 men, and these 600 men kind of threw the wives over their shoulders and went back into the land of Benjamin to rebuild the Benjamin tribe. Now guys, that's complicated, and I know that. But all along the way, men who claimed to be of God, they were taking concubines, they were killing people, they got bloodthirsty, and they killed children, and they were stealing women, and they all along the way, everyone did what they thought was right in their own eyes to solve this problem. As you stand back and say, I can't believe that people would do that. See, in those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right. Now watch this, guys. It's my life. My life. I could do what I want. See, all of us at times have found ourselves in that situation. No one's going to tell me what to do. If I want to drink, I'll drink. If I want to take drugs, I'll take drugs. If I want to go out and find people to have sex with, I'll go out and do that. You're not going to tell me what I can do. When I want to do it, with whom I want. As long as nobody gets hurt. But guys, isn't that the key to this thing? Because watch this. You get hurt. You become alcohol addicted. You become drug addicted. We live in a retirement community. Sexual transmitted diseases are running rampant through our community. Because everybody's been married to someone 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and now their partner's died, and they don't want to get married because they'll lose part of their retirement or they'll lose part of the inheritance, so they just start having sex with everybody. And ambulances are in our community every week. They get sexually transmitted diseases. We know a couple that was involved in wife and husband swapping. And that within itself is bad, and they're getting ready to get a divorce, or they just got a divorce. But what it has done to their children, seeing their parents act and do the things that they've done. You get hurt,